you win games on defense, really. The offense sells the tickets and defense wins the championship.
Tonight's Chuck Smith Show, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service, is also brought to you by our loyal sponsors. Charlie's Bar and Restaurant, located at 800 Shore Road in Summers Point. Meet your friends at Charlie's at the shore since '44. Chico & Son Sub Shop, located at 1620 Tilton Road, Northfield. Choose the #1 sub shop in South Jersey. And the Docks Place, located at 646 Bay Avenue in Summers Point. Book your dinner reservations now at 609-926-0404. Thank you for your support of Mainland Regional Football.
But when you have a solid program, a lot of that can take over what an individual might do. Before he releases the ball, he takes a shot right as he releases it here. And for him to stand in there in the face of that, and that's just the confidence that he has. And I found myself just trying to catch my breath for a bit because of the excitement and just the pressure of that moment. This is a game that the kids, you live for.
This is the Chuck Smith Show on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. Now, here's Coach Smith and your host, Nick Kosko.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Chuck Smith Show right here on Cape Atlantic Live. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, and with me, as always, is Mainland head coach Chuck Smith. Coach, guys are coming off a 20-7 victory over Ocean City on the road. Big rivalry game, Bridge Trophy. It remains in your possession. You guys improved to 3-3, moved back up to number 9 overall in South Jersey Group 3. So overall, a good weekend. It was an earlier game on Friday, but I would say celebration was warranted right there after a big win like that. So got to imagine everyone's feeling good going into this next week.
Yeah, a big win. Anytime you play Ocean City, you can pull out a W. It's a great thing. And coming off a tough loss against St. Augustine Prep, it was a good bounce back game. For the kids, it was a easy week to prepare for. When you're getting ready for Ocean City, it doesn't take much to get the kids really excited for the game. So it was easy. Coming off a tough loss, it was a good bounce back game kind of for that. And it was a tough contest. It looked like it was going to go in our favor big time in the first half, and it became a defensive battle in the second half. And, we were able to maintain the trophy and come home with a victory.
So all that scoring was in the first half, as you just alluded to, in that 20-7 win. You guys actually built a 20-0 lead. Ocean City got a late touchdown before the halftime break, but then in the second half, no scoring at all. So what really changed between the first half and the second half, where you guys seemingly, again, you guys forced 5 total turnovers on defense as well, including 4 interceptions, but the offense was rolling in the first half. It was more ball control in the second half, and for Ocean City, you guys really shut them down on offense. So what really changed from the first half to the second half, where it was just pretty much, hey, we're just going to battle with time of possession here?
Yeah, we missed some assignments, but I think one of our team captains, Chase Hogue, was injured in the second quarter. And when that happened, you could really feel the wind come out of our sails from the kids. I mean, the kid's a warrior. He's been a 2-year team captain for us. Running back, linebacker, plays all over the place, special teams. And, when he went down, you could just feel the energy from our team kind of go out, and I think that really affected us on the offensive side because he's been really a spark plug for us offensively, carrying the ball and blocking. He's a tremendous blocker. And we were kind of sputtering a lot offensively in the second half, missing some plays, some keys, some open receivers and things like that. But the defense stepped it up, and you win games on defense, really. The offense sells the tickets and defense wins the championships. And, our defense really held tight. I think they had 5 or 6 turnovers overall. I think there was 4 interceptions and a fumble recovery, in the game. So they really hunkered down. And there was a couple of times where Ocean City had the opportunity to get it back, to a one-score game. A couple times in the red zone, we came up big down there.
Mm-hmm. When you look at what Chase Hogue can do now, obviously, remains to be seen when he returns here after, going down with a tough injury. As you mentioned, takes the wind out of your sails a little bit for a senior captain just like that. But, Lucas DiBiaso still in the backfield. You've used guys like Brady Callen. I know Jake Blum carries the football as well. Liam Kennedy. It's basically a running back by committee. Who's the hot hand? You guys generally have done this for a long time where it's like, hey, you have 3 to 4 guys you can use in the backfield. What does it look like now in that backfield, and what can Chase do? Or what has he done so far while he's rehabbing / supporting his teammates?
Yeah, he's a great team leader, and he'll be out there, while he's rehabbing, recovering from this, cheering on his teammates. There's nothing that he won't do to be out there with the kids. But you know what? I thought the guy stepped up. Like you said, we got a lot of other guys there too. And a lot of the guys, they're all playing both sides of the ball. So really, their conditioning is paramount now. But we still ran for 300 yards in the game.
Yeah.
Lucas had a great game. Lucas DiBiaso and Johnny Franchini ran the ball well. And the run for 300 yards is a lot of yards, But we just have to we're kind of going back and game plan some things and trying to move some personnel around. Just make sure we have a little bit of depth because, everybody knows we like to run with 6 running backs back there.
Yeah.
You don't always have that luxury. So we're kind of moving a couple of people around, kind of getting some of the young guys that are maybe not quite ready for prime time yet, but get them up to speed as soon as possible because, they could be a play away from being in there.
Yeah, you guys have an interesting stretch coming up. Of course, Egg Harbor Township on Friday at home back at the Corral. Another rivalry game for you guys coming up in just a few days. And then going to Winslow, which is still ranked the top public school in the state. So you guys see them again this season. And then you host Delsey. So big stretch run for you guys. A couple more things on the Ocean City game before we get into a couple highlights. You mentioned how the kids are going to rally around and that, the defense, I guess, really came to play in that second half where it's like, hey, maybe the wind came out of the sails a little bit for the offense in the second half, and Chase Hogue was a big key contributor on defense as well. But you guys, again, overall in that game, forced 5 total turnovers. Was there something in the water that day? I mean, your defense arguably had its best performance of the season so far.
Yeah, we had we got good pressure on the quarterback with our defensive front. Anthony Santos had probably his best game he's had yet as a Mustang. TJ McBall in the middle is just a force to be reckoned with. I mean, everybody always has to dedicate at least 2 people to him, if not 3 to triple team him. And our coverage was really good for the most part. Guys were forcing the quarterback to throw it when he didn't want to, and it forced some errors on his part. And we were just able to seize the opportunity and get some turnovers and give the offense another shot.
So we'll dive into some of the highlights. We'll start out here in the first quarter. This is the first touchdown, nice touchdown pass from John Franchini to A.J. Gockler.
Yeah, this is on our first drive down the field. Big drive for us to start the game. It's always nice when you get the ball first and you can drive right down the field and score. And it was just a simple sprint out action. And the quarterback put it right where only one person could catch the ball. And A.J. Gockler, our sophomore slot back, made a tremendous catch there.
Yeah, behind 2 defenders as well. Good throw, good catch. Following up later in the first quarter, you guys took advantage of here. Again, one of the turnovers here. Here was a muff punt, so you guys end up turning this into a points a couple plays later.
Yeah, we stress this a lot with our punt team. Protection's always paramount, and then we got to get down the field and cover, and it's not a playoff. And when you hustle down the field, you never know what's going to happen. A play like this, where the punt returner just mishandled the ball, and we were right there. Brady Callen to jump on it and give us great field position on a second possession, really.
Yeah, and a couple of plays later is where Johnny took over with his legs. 130 yards on the ground for him on Friday, and he took this one to the house for a touchdown. Yeah,
it's really a broken play. It was a couple missed assignments on our front, and Johnny did a nice job reading the play, but believe me, it wasn't supposed to be like that. He just made something out of nothing with his legs and showed a nice burst of speed there.
What can you make of his ability to run? I mean, we've talked about it week to week at this point with his newfound ability to run with the football. And again, he had over 100 yards on the ground. It's been, I guess, the new unlocked tool to his quarterback arsenal this year.
Yeah, I think every year you try to tweak your offense a little bit here and there. You can't always stay stagnant because teams catch up to you fast. And we just needed to add another tweak to our offense. And that was a little bit of adding a quarterback run game in there. And believe me, I don't want to run them as much as we did the other day. But it kind of became, because of what happened with Chase, it became more of using him and his legs and his ability a little bit more, and he did a good job.
Well, the threat of his legs helped out on this option play we're going to see right here. This is Lucas DiBiaso's touchdown. Just quick pitch out to him, and he made a couple guys miss. And then, of course, the speed up the middle. You can't really stop him in this situation.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, it's a good play, and the blocking downfield is what we really pride ourselves on. And you can see everybody is pretty much engaged, even our offensive tackles down the field running there. Colt Russo to get in the way of somebody. But it was a great job by those guys too, because you can make the right read and pitch the ball out, but if you're not blocking anybody, it's going nowhere. And the guys did a great job there. AJ Gockler and Chase Hogue right there, all those guys.
Put you guys up 20-0 early in the second quarter. Again, held on for the 22-7 lead. So one more on the Ocean City game, Coach. We talked about it last week. The bridge is supposed to get lit up green, but it was still broad daylight. Was it lit up green this time around?
I didn't see. It's like the standing joke at Mainland. We win and the bridge never turns colors. But if they win, especially when we're over there, that bridge is red before we even get out of town. But it was still daylight, so in our heads it's green for a week.
Consolation, the mic is green tonight.
Yeah,
it usually is. The banners on the graphics on the screen right now are also green. So all right, we'll transition over to EHT. So another rivalry game. I know this one used to have a trophy on the line, the Kiwanis Trophy, when it was a Thanksgiving Day game. Still a big game for you guys. Still two schools that have butted heads for such a long time. I know, again, officially the trophy's still not on the line anymore, but they're coming to town this time around. A lot of kids on that team. They have a big offensive and defensive line. Just your general assessments on Egg Harbor Township for Friday night.
Yeah, kind of a team that's building there. Coach Davis, I think it's second or third year. I think it is for him. Coach DeRosa came back this year. He's in charge of the offense. They have Coach Scanlon, who was up at Clearview, did a tremendous job. He's been on staff for a couple of years now. I think they're just trying to get that program going still. They're dangerous. You look at them, they have some big kids on the front. They got some weapons in the backfield, some speed. They're scary. You can't. The thing we stress to the kids, you can't always just look at somebody's record and just assume this is going to be an easy game to play, because the kids they have pride. They're going to come out to win. I mean, I think we've beat them 7 years in a row now. So you have that under their skin to come at you. It's just trying to remind the kids. I said, hey, anybody watch Penn State against UCLA last weekend? Here's an 0-4 team against a team that's ranked number 7 in the nation, and they snuck them. Maybe they were looking past them and thought it was going to be an easy game and all the turmoil they were in. And that's one thing you can never do, is underestimate your opponent, no matter what the record is. You kind of forget about that once the ball's kicked off. And so we're really preparing, focused totally on the EHT this week, not looking past them at all, just to get better at what we're doing and come out with a win, hopefully.
Yeah, tough record for them this year, 1-5, coming off a 6-4 season. So you mentioned how Coach Davis is still trying to get that program consistently going over the course of his tenure. As far as what you look at on the film on Friday night for EHT's offense, they've used two different quarterbacks this year, and Josh Colella and Andrew Oleg both have had success within that offensive system. And they have two very fast running backs, as you already alluded to, Leon Brown and Brian Tennant, to name a few, are guys that are running the football. And, of course, their junior tight end, Jake Lund, arguably their biggest weapon, who's already receiving multiple Division I offers. He's, arguably the biggest kid on the team and, the most talented kid on the team. So looking at EHC's offense, what have you seen on the film leading up to Friday?
Yeah, they're dangerous. You mentioned the two quarterbacks. One throws a little bit more than the other one. The other one's a nice running quarterback. They have like a speedy running back that can get off the edge. He had one against Lower Cape May where he turned the corner and went like 70 yards in a heartbeat. And then they have the big boy in the backfield too that's just like the battering ram. And they have some size up front. Like you said, the tight end's a big target. A nice catch for a touchdown against Lower Cape May in the beginning of the game where he went up and caught the football. He's something you really got to consider dealing with. And they're a team that if they get it going, they're going to be hard to get to compete against. So you really got to put the hammer to them. And the thing with EHT, they always have size. They're always big up front, and then you add the tight end to that, and you add the running back into the mix. And it's a dangerous team. We really got to come ready to tackle and stop that run game first, and then hopefully, get some pressure on the quarterback.
And then on the flip side, looking at their defense, and you ran over Ocean City last week with over 300 yards on the ground. As far as their defense is concerned, EHT's, their defensive back Alex Lazos leads the team with tackles, and they have a very talented linebacker, and Christian Lara also second on the team in tackles. So they're going to get after it, but obviously teams have been able to get downhill on them this year a little bit and start putting up a lot of points. But with you guys going with that run-first mentality, how do you attack EHC's defense?
Yeah, we're going to do what we always do. We run the ball. So, we just got to look for where there might be some advantages for us in the schemes and formations and stuff like that. But, the same thing, like they have big defensive tackles in there. The big boy plays in there too, the tight end on the front. Linebackers, they got some skill guys in the back end, some speed back there. We just have to come on point and be ready to block and move people to be effective offensively.
I'm curious about this rivalry in general. As you mentioned, it's been a little bit one-sided in favor of you guys in recent years, but this was a long-standing Thanksgiving game, one of the last ones to get removed around in this area. I know Vineland and Millville still play, and obviously AC and Holy Spirit, some of the few Thanksgiving games remaining in the entire state. But this one lasts, I believe, until 2020, where you got during the shortened season, you guys ended up playing week 1. So. And that was kind of the end of the the Thanksgiving Day tradition. Yeah. But I guess from a general sense, what are your memories of this game as far as it could be recently in the last 10 plus years, or even back to your playing days or your early coaching days. This rivalry does go back a long time between these two schools.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I was able to play in the very first game against the EHT back in '83, my senior year when they first opened. I think it was the very first game in the stadium there.
Yeah,
because the field wasn't ready all season long, and then finally it was. And we were fortunate to win like 27-0 that game. And it was Mainland's game for a long time. And then when EHT started to get going, in the early 90s, all of a sudden it flipped, and then they had a run of victories against us. And then it seemed for a while there through the 90s, like were very good football programs. In the playoffs. I remember one year we played on Thanksgiving. We played in the playoffs and we played in Thanksgiving, the way it was. And it's always been a great rivalry. I don't think there haven't been really a lot of lopsided scores in it, but it's a fun thing because, you look at it, they're right in our backyard. I mean, really, they're you look across Mainland when you look out from our field and there's a Patcon Creek there. And on the other side of Patcon Creek is EHT. Yeah. You almost throw a stone to get there. But it's always a fun game. It's always fun to go out there to play. Their facilities are phenomenal. The coaches are great guys that are on their staff. There's a lot of camaraderie there. Always fun when they come to our place too, and we're fortunate this year they're coming to our place. And that was like one of our last games in the Thanksgiving era with them. We had a Thanksgiving Eve game at Mainland. And for a couple of years there, those games were going to overtime. Yeah, they were going right down to the wire, and that was one of the biggest crowds Mainland has ever had for a football game ever. Playoffs and everything was a Thanksgiving Eve game, and it was a tremendous atmosphere. And both teams were just like so at the time, like maybe 1 or 2 wins each of us had going into that, but it was a great atmosphere, and you would have never known it by the crowd that was there. It wound up going to overtime that game, but a lot of fun. Then we tried to move it from Thanksgiving to the first game of the season.
Right.
Then after that, it kind of fell into just being part of the season games. And that's one of those games that we always requested, when we go into the planning of the next stage of the schedule cycle, we always ask, hey, we would like to play Ocean City and we like to play EHT to keep those rivalries going.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's funny you mentioned. I think I go back to Thanksgiving Day of my senior year at EHT as well. Again, we weren't anything special that season as well. But again, the crowd always shows up. And it was my senior class's last game. It was at home too, so it was really cool. But the away stands, generally at all these high school stadiums are smaller, but it was just packed to the gills. And with Mainland green, look at our sideline, packed to the gills with the black and silver. So Is there a singular game that stands out? Maybe whether it's win or loss for you. I know Ocean City, you go back with all those playoff games as well. And I know EHC and Mainland have historically usually been in different playoff groups based on the enrollment, so you don't really get those playoff environments, but you get the playoff-like environments because it was always a Thanksgiving Day tradition.
I know in 2008 when we went undefeated, I was the offensive coordinator that year, and we took a 7-0 lead. And then I think EHT scored the next 27 points, and we were losing in the third quarter 27-7.
Yeah.
And we were already in the Group 4 final happening after that game against Southern. And I remember being on top of the press box, freezing my rear end off, just thinking to myself, like, how are we going to get these guys up for a championship game when we're getting blasted right now? Yeah. And then we happened to come out and hit a couple plays and put us right back in the game, and we won it in the final minutes of the game, beat them 30-27, came back and win. That was a good EHT team also.
I remember that
I think the following year, they went to the Group 4 final. They had a great the quarterback that went to Harvard, I think, played that year. Miller, I think his last name was.
Yeah, Scott Miller. Yep,
Scott Miller. And that's probably my favorite game of the rivalry because we won it at the end on quarterback power with Brent Caprio quarterback, and he was sick, had like 101 fever, and played the game. And it was just a big comeback, down all those points, and just it showed that team and what they were about and why they were undefeated in a championship caliber team.
It is funny you mentioned those 2 years because you guys went to the Group 4 final in 2008, and then 2009 they go to the Group 4 final the very next year. And it's funny with I think you said 1983 where the facilities weren't done. It was just like, hey, the field's not done, but we're going to play the first game here.
Yeah.
I think the same thing was the same held true in 2009 because that was actually the year before my senior class ended up going into high school, where the turf field just got done for the Thanksgiving Day game. So the EHT played the entire season on the road. I think their home games were, I think, de facto at St. Augustine Prep were like their home games that year en route to an undefeated regular season. So it is funny how all these circumstances, but yeah, it's like the old adage. If you two said, all right, we have to go play in the parking lot, on Thursday, I think both teams would show up, and then obviously a couple thousand people as well.
That game you're talking about, we scored the first touchdown of the game.
Yeah.
And then EHT just put the hammer to us. They scored the next, I don't know, it was like 30-7 final score, maybe even more than that,
Yeah.
But we scored the first one.
You always have the first one. You have that, and you have the epic 08 game. Which is pretty funny. Is there? Have you guys reminisced about that 08 game at all? Considering it was just like, oh my god, like we're getting killed.
Yeah, over the years now that there's been a lot of championships at Mainland.
Yeah,
and you get together with those groups of guys. We're fortunate to have a very strong alumni group of guys that are always connected to the program. Mm-hmm. And whenever you get a group of guys from those championship years, you start talking about the games and things that happen like that. And that game always comes up in conversation when I see the guys around the holidays and stuff like that. So it's really special.
Yeah, that's a really fond memory to have, especially, it's like, oh my God, down by 20. It's like, what am I freezing up here for? All of a sudden, you guys are, probably jumping off the press box to go celebrate a big win ahead of a championship game. So, all right, Coach, 6 p.m. on Friday night, we'll have that game on Cape Atlantic Live. EHT against Mainland, the rivalry renewed here in 2025. It's homecoming. So, what do the homecoming festivities look like for you guys?
Yeah, it's just a simple thing, halftime, they'll announce the homecoming court and then eventually name the king and queen for this year. Homecoming dance, it's weird because it was always later in November, but now the season ends so early in the playoffs, and homecoming dance isn't until November sometime, but it's one of those things. I think I don't know if it's lost its allure at Mainland to a degree, but I remember when I first was a student at Mainland, there were floats and everything, and they would take them around the track, and each class had a float. And it was really cool. A couple of years ago, I was able to go scout at Vineland against Pennsauken for the playoffs.
Yeah.
And Vineland had a parade down Main Street for homecoming with floats and everything. And then it led right to the football field, and they drove everybody around the football field with the whole homecoming court and everything. It was really like a throwback to what you think football was like in the 50s and 60s, with that camaraderie with the school and the school spirit and everything. And I think a lot of schools, it's just gone by the wayside now. It's just really neat that some of these places still hold on to that. It's special.
Yeah, it is really cool that Vineland does that, considering, we mentioned the Thanksgiving games and the rivalries, them in Millville, that they've gone back well over 100 years. I believe it's actually, it is still recorded as the oldest high school football rivalry in the country, I'm pretty sure. So tradition is still alive somewhere here in South Jersey. So we'll see how it continues on Friday night for you guys. EHT at Mainland, 6 p.m. right here on Cape Atlantic Live. We'll have the game live for you across YouTube if you're not going to be there in person. Coach, appreciate the time as always. We'll see you on Friday, and good luck in another what should be a hard-hitting game between EHT and Mainland.
I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it won't disappoint anybody. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Chuck Smith Show right here on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service.